From the recent Boston Marathon bombings to September 11th, what role does religion play when reporting some of the leading stories of our generation? I met with Laurie Goodstein, the national religion correspondent for the New York Times, to talk about best practices when covering religion in the face of tragedy. On April 15th at 2:49 p.m., 2 bombs went off at the finish line of the Boston Marathon, killing 3 people and injuring over 200. When the 2 suspects, Tsokar Tsarnaev and his older brother Tamerlan, were identified days later, investigators began to look at potential motives and discovered a turn toward radical Islam.
Every religion is not a monolith, right? That's certainly true in Islam, but really in every faith. There are different schools, there are different teachers, there are different sources that people might turn to. And so what I think is helpful is to get as specific as possible, to not just say, oh, this is, these are Muslims, or these people follow Islam. What teachers were they following? What preachers, who did they put on, on their YouTube sites? Muslims, the issue was this.
Goodstein began her career as a religion writer at the Washington Post and moved to the Times in 1997. When September 11th happened, she covered the religious shockwaves across the nation, including hate crimes against Muslims.
I think sometimes it's hard to interview people who have very strong feelings about a faith, especially if they are denigrating another faith and saying false things about a faith. And around that time, there was an awful lot of hatred and fear of Islam and of Muslims. And so, the role is to just listen and not to try to set somebody straight necessarily, or to correct errors or misperceptions, but just to listen, because your job is to hold up a mirror.
What role do you think empathy plays in religion reporting, and how do you strike the balance between empathy and objectivity?
Look, I think empathy is important in any kind of reporting you do. A lot of reporting is, seeing people when something horrible has just happened to them. So I think, being a human being and having compassion for people, I think is something that reporters, no matter what beat they're on, should be able to do. But I think the key with religion reporting is to be respectful without being deferential. I think it's appropriate to ask questions that are just as hard, just as challenging, and just as basic as you would on any beat, and not to let someone off the hook just because they're a person of faith or a believer.
Do you feel that this story was covered fairly from a religion perspective?
I think it's early to say. I think that we've advanced from 9/11, when there was a lot of denunciation at that time of Islam, much more widespread than I saw this time. This time I do see some, what I would call, demonizing of Islam going on, on certain outlets, and certainly in the blogosphere, on the internet. You definitely see that in Twitter. But I think that responsible sources have not done that. I also think there has been outlets for Muslim leaders who are mainstream spokespeople for the community to be able to talk about how their community has responded, which has been clear denunciations of violence, clear denunciations of terrorism, and I think it's important to give those people a voice.
Why do you think religion reporting is important, and what role do you feel it plays in helping us understand the world that we live in?
Understanding religion is often the missing link in how news is reported, how events are thought of in a newsroom, because what motivates people, we'll look at an economic motivator, we'll look at class, we'll look at race, we'll look at education, but we don't often look enough at religion in terms of understanding what makes people tick. And that's what keeps me going, is religion as the missing link, and what can I contribute in terms of understanding, our world, or understanding trends, or understanding breaking news.